Hello, this is the Blast Report podcast on all things blasting. My name is Evan Thibaud with New Wave Consulting, and I want to thank all the drill and blast teams along with those supporting them who are out there on the pattern. The production team at BlastThink and I would like to welcome you to today's episode of the Blast Report podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by BlastON, Explosives Engineering International Forum, your ultimate source for the latest insights in blasting, mining, and civil explosives. Just like the Blast Report podcast, BlastON is committed to fostering an online community connecting professionals and enthusiasts. We believe in the power of inclusive knowledge sharing, promoting new technologies, quality innovation, and operational safety in explosives engineering, all for free and in multiple languages. As a subscriber, you get exclusive access to multiple online events connecting you with industry experts and the latest trends. Join BlastON today to elevate your knowledge and network. Visit blaston.org to subscribe now for free and be a part of a dynamic community that's shaping the future of explosives engineering. BlastON, connecting experts, igniting innovation. Now let's detonate in today's episode.
Welcome to the Blast Report podcast.
Thanks very much.
I really appreciate you coming out here. You've always been a very friendly face at the conferences to the students, and you're very open, and I've always appreciated you and being your friendly demeanor, and also coming from a technical background. Yeah. The questions you ask usually at the conferences are very thought-provoking. So that's really nice that you stand up and you ask those questions. And since I was young in the industry, I always saw you and would say hi. So yeah, absolutely. It's nice to see you're out there on your own now. And yeah, I really want to just start the podcast and get your origin story. Sure. How did you start, and what was the inspiration that you decided that blasting seems to be the right thing for me?
It was interesting. All my life, it's been just a series of tripping into, when I say tripping, not drug tripping, but tripping over circumstances and ending up falling on my feet in different situations where everything's just worked out. So I'll even go back to the original beginning. I was a young kid at school, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I got good grades at school and stuff like that, and then I was, there was a campaign for mining at that same time on TV and stuff like that. And I was reasonable at maths and physics and so on, chemistry. And this advert on TV was like this little kid asking his dad, Dad, what does a miner do? And then the dad says, well, it's sort of like, and then you cut to explosions, trucks and oil rigs and a whole bunch of stuff that was just, really exciting. And at that point, and then it cuts back to the guy and his kid. He says, "That's what a miner does." And there was another one at the end. It says, "Miners, they're just the backbone of Australia."
Yeah,
and I thought to myself, "Yeah, I want to be the backbone of Australia." So that was it. I said, "Yeah, I'm going to do that."
And so then you decided that you wanted to go into university.
Yeah, School of Mines in WA.
Okay, and so is that where you first got your hands on some explosives, or? Yeah,
not quite. It was a long time ago. I started it in 1979. But what did happen was that it was, in those days, the West Australian School of Mines at Kalgoorlie, and you did the full 4 years there. And there was mining operations down the road, across the street, basically. And what was really cool was that I think it was the Wednesday of the first week of the first semester of the first year. And we were underground with all the kit, the lamp and all that sort of stuff. And it was a real filter, because you go underground, and what they say, and I believe it's true, is when you walk through that portal or go down the shaft, you immediately know if it's for you or if it's not for you. And I just was in heaven. I just, walked down, the smell of the diesel, the dust and mud and stuff. And this is what I want to do. And
you're not wrong about that.
No, not at all.
Same thing happened to me. I was like, this is cool.
Yeah, I belong here.
Yeah.
And it helps being, pretty short and small, and because it's a bit like being a fighter pilot. I'm genetically tailored to be an underground guy.
Hey, me too.
Get into small spaces and stuff. So that was how it kicked off, and worked underground, and then you start to handle the explosives. The first time you have your first dynamite headache, you don't forget that in a hurry. I did some vac work. Well, every year then you do vac work in the mines to get your time up and pay for the following year. So I was working at Mount Human Iron Ore, and I did work with explosives there. So you'd be getting taught how to handle packs of molinite. And molinite was a DuPont. What you call? I suppose it's a water gel product, and it was just slick stuff. It was all about breaking oversize and stuff like that, and learning how to tie knots and detonating cord and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
This goes back, in those days, non-L was coming in. Yeah, that was when everybody said, "Oh, that non-L stuff looks pretty weird."
What's that? Yeah. I was
So,
thinking of having a det cord tying contest at the Emerging Professional Social, just to see who still got their clove hitches down quick. Just to see who can tie it faster.
Absolutely.
With some inert cord. I thought maybe but then almost half the people who go to that event probably don't even know how to do it. So I wouldn't be able to do that. Knots were never my strong. I was never a Boy Scout, so I never got to do knots. So the molinite that you used, is that was that a long section of product for you?
No, it was a slap pack.
Okay.
Yeah. So so that was these were just things you use, and I think they died out ages ago, and it was well known as a really good go-to explosive, as was dynamite. But obviously there were other issues with dynamite, but aren't quite so flash.
And so did you become? This was still while you were a student during your
in my undergrad, yeah, for sure. And then after that, I did it was a downturn in the industry when I finished my degree, and so I went to the other side of the country. I was in Kalgoorlie. I went to Queensland, to Brisbane. And I did some work, did a master's degree to my shame, in mechanical rock cutting. So, for 2 years I betrayed the trade, betrayed the craft. But when I finished that, I joined the JK in Lassie. There's a good friend from Calgary. He said, "What are you going to do now?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Come and work with us." So there was this guy, Jeff Dawes. There was Cameron McKenzie, was the boss of the
I've heard that name before.
Oh yeah. And those guys were just inspiring. And the other thing was, so what do we do? So, well, basically, I joined the group on the 31st of December, 1984, and on the 4th of January, 85, I'm going to play into Chile with these two characters.
That's why you say you're Chilean almost.
Well, yeah,
when
almost.
Someone asks where you're from,
yeah,
pretty much.
But I'm more Scottish and Australian than Chilean. But that was fantastic because in those days, that was really, for me anyway, was the birth of underground of blast vibration measurement, the way we all do it today. We had a Raquel tape recorder, which was I don't know, must have weighed 30 kilos or something like that. We had geophones, so we potted geophones. We put them down on the ends of PVC pipe string, and we had an XY recorder to graph things. It was amazing, and it was for 3 months, and just learned so much about things like stemming, when it doesn't work, when a charge will flash through and take out the next one, a whole bunch of things. We got to handle stuff. We actually made. We decided we needed to introduce some sort of light kind of explosive. So we actually messed around and we created, I'm sure we weren't the first by any stretch of the imagination, but we basically made what they called isonol, which is ANFO with polystyrene.
Oh, okay.
And that was a lot of fun with polystyrene everywhere, but it worked. It was actually
static sticking there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We looked like bloody Michelin men.
What was the density of that stuff?
0.7.
Okay.
Yeah, and it looked okay. It was good.
Good stuff.
So that was when and from then, my life ever since then, 85, has always been blasting research, explosives research, internal consulting with explosive companies, stuff like that. So it's a bit embarrassing, but I've worked on lots of mines, for 3 months here, 6 months there, and stuff like that. I've never been employed by a mining company. I know zero about mine planning. People, say, oh, what are you doing? Oh, this is called AutoCAD, this is called Vulcan, this is called whatever. I said, I have no idea.
It's a very expensive Etch-a-Sketch that saves people. Changes.
But literally, all I can do is, by and large, is drilling and blasting, and smile and talk a lot.
And so, most of your career was then focused in Chile. Actually, once you moved there, or did you end up going back to Oz and working in Kalgoorlie, the Gold Coast?
That's a good question. I spent after the JK, I got sent to Chile 3 times on different projects. So I gradually picked up Spanish. I got to know the people. I got to know the mines, and I just enjoyed it. When I finished my doctorate, they had an opening. They needed someone to go across there, sort of semi-permanently, to be the manager of their long-term research projects with companies like Codelco and Anglo American and stuff. For me. So I sold all my furniture. I packed up 2 suitcases worth of bits and pieces, and I went to Chile.
Now, is that where your wife is from?
It is.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. It's nice to meet her yesterday.
It was good.
And you met her before you decided to move there, or after you decided to move?
I met her literally passing by. I was about to go back to Australia. I met her in the lunchroom of the place we were working at. The JK had their office. And then I had to go home. But eventually, when I went back to do this management stuff, I met her again, and I think within a year we were married. Had to fight like hell to get her to actually pay any attention to me. We had our kids there, and then I think 97 we eventually let's go back to Australia. Kids have got Australian nationality. So we went back to Australia, and I joined. Can I mention the company's names?
Yeah.
It's not an ad.
Maybe no one's suing us yet. So exactly. We'll see how this shit plays out.
So I joined Dynamo, and with my background in messing about with geophones and what have you, and explosives, that was when we formed Dyno Consult, the first ever sort of Dyno Consult.
That's when it happened.
That's when it started. And Dynamo was, I'm sure still is, but it was just a great place to work. Tremendous place to work. Great management, the whole box and dice. The boss in those days of Dyno Consult was ironically the VP of marketing. And what he taught us was exactly the opposite of what we were talking about before. He taught us that, the difference that you can make is all about focusing on the client. Use technology, use high quality engineering in the field, and focus on the client. You put all of that at the disposition of the client. You don't sell product, which was really weird in an explosive company. But it paid off. I mean, what a great way to get loyalty. And they said, well, do you charge us money? I said, no. Look, they pay me. If you buy this stuff, then, that's how it all evens out.
Built into the cost.
Absolutely. And that worked out really well. I did a lot of work with them around, around Latin America, visited, in those days it was a Norwegian company. So visited, Norway and Europe, which was great. Worked in Indonesia, learned an enormous amount.
Where in Indonesia?
Worked at a place called Batu Hijau, which was I think still is a Newmont mine, and that was enormous fun.
Is it on Java? Or?
No, it's on an island called Sumbawa. So if you go, there's Java, there's Bali, then there is Lombok, and the next one across is I think Sumbawa. I think is the right name.
Oh wow!
But again, great.
That's definitely a nice opportunity to go visit.
Yeah.
And blast there. And there's a lot of people who can take their career in explosives and finely tune it in their core or in their mine site, and they become absolute subject matter experts in that facility. And then there's also other people who have taken their career and gone all over the world. They got a travel bug. They've went to different places, you know. And I think it's always interesting to see both sides of the picture, because when you have people who they know everything about that rock that's in the Southeast Tennessee or you know, in Western Canada,
exactly.
And then other people who have just been essentially thrown into the mix of a foreign country with a foreign language, you know, foreign problems.
Yeah.
And you think you know the issue, and you think you have the solution, but then it's not. You know, is there a certain situation that you had in one of these foreign countries that you can like recall that you thought you had the answer to, and you walked in kind of with confidence, and then you walked out with your tail between your leg, and you kind of was like, oh,
ran
out. Yeah, it's like a humbling experience.
Yeah, one in particular, we're doing. Well, the interesting thing about Chile is a lot of the mining there underground is panel caving. So it's not block caving; it's just long panels. It's incredibly stressful. Generates a lot of stress in the rock in order to produce the caving. And the way they would do that is they have, you know, draw belts on one level, and on the level above they have these long drives, which are basically where you drill the undercut sort of stuff, and you blast that, clear out or fragment that lower level, and then the thing starts caving. And they would always fire, I'm going to say three drives worth, and maybe 2 rings or 3 rings. And myself and a couple of colleagues said, well, you know, why don't you fire more? So, because it's to do with the vibrations. We misunderstood. We thought they were talking about the blast vibrations, and they weren't. They were talking about something else, which we discovered, and that was because we look at, you know, we were monitoring, we're measuring vibrations, and you can see the gaps. You know, you could say, well, there's no vibration in here. So if we put some more charges in here with different delays, we're not going to increase the, you know, the vibration level. So it'll be sweet. We'll be heroes. Wrong. We realized very quickly that if you open up, and this was our first sort of clash with geomechanics and stuff, if you open up a large amount of area, you change the stress balance of the whole damn mountain. And what you generate there are rock bursts. So we did this, we sort of, high fives and stuff, and there's this, it was a nightmare. And the people at the mine said, what the hell did you do? We said, we did this. Oh, Jesus. We said we had a problem with the vibration to do with seismic events. Oh. So that was humbling. You thought to yourself, man, it's not just about the blasting. And from then on, it's always been about that. You can blast it, but you got to blast it within the context of the whole mining operation and the plant, of course. So that was when I first got my taste of geomechanics and the fact that you need to have a lot of internal clients, you know, satisfied.
And were those vibrations very low frequencies from the rock blast, from the rock bursts themselves, and were they quite sporadic?
They were high vibrations, you know, literally high frequency. High frequency. And what will happen is you'll get a shift on a small discontinuity well within the rock mass, and that will do that. And then you get these high frequency stress waves, which will travel on through the rock until they hit a tunnel. And then you get very violent spalling, because as you know, a depressive wave hits an interface with air, turns immediately into a tensile wave. Wow, that comes, and it's seriously dangerous. I mean, you know, people will die under some circumstances if you don't, you know, if you haven't got you haven't got that taken into account. Luckily, when that happens, usually, initially anyway, the worst ones, quite often people are not in that area. But it's something people have been studying for
the pressure wave underground, just through the stopes, through the workings,
through the rock,
just enough to kill people.
Yeah, through the rock. It's basically you get this violent spalling, and you can literally fill a drive with broken rock. Floor comes up, the walls come up, the roof comes down, and it's a nightmare.
That's when you start realizing you're out of your element. Mother Nature's in control.
Exactly.
We're picking and doing what we can, you know. But wow, that's
and there's, you know, they have microseismic networks. You've got literally physicists working in the offices, tracking the stuff and plotting them where they go, and sort of say, you might find that you've got a period of high intensity activity, so you move people into another sector. It's amazing. South Africa has always been a place where you've got 5 miles of depth. The stresses are huge, and that's always been something that I think they were, probably still are, together with the Chileans, world leaders in measuring and predicting and calculating the physics and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. The mining method, I mean, the deposits are massive. They're big porphyries, and when they began, in some cases 80 years ago, they were caving secondary ore, which is weaker, a lot more fragmented, and caves, just literally caves quite easily. And it's blockading, paddle caving. And so you basically cave it, and the mining method literally is just controlling the flow into, mine cars. But as you come down, you get into primary rock, which is much harder, much more competent, a lot less fractured. And at that stage, your mining method is basically fixed, and these might be not terribly high grade. So if you were to try and go in and do long hole open stoping, for example, it wouldn't make any sense economically. So you basically, that's what you do. But there's a lot more to it. It's pretty fascinating stuff, and blasting can be quite interesting in terms of inducing specific effects, which are actually positive. So
I have lots of experience in different applications of explosives, and done quite a bit of underground, but it was always in underground tunneling.
Yeah.
So I haven't had a lot of stoping experience. So it's quite a bit of when I see the photos of what it's like tying up a shot.
Yeah.
With a fan cut.
Yeah.
Where top holes and bottom holes.
Yeah.
I'm like, how does anyone stay organized with that tight?
Mud everywhere as well, which doesn't help much. Yeah.
And it's styrofoam for you guys.
Well, once it eventually got to the point where it's emulsion, gas emulsion, solid sensitized emulsion, ANFA, a lot of ANFA, bagged ANFA, a lot of good stemming. Underground you need the stemming, so you literally bring in sacks of blue metal chips and stuff like that. So I just loved it. But you're right, you have like rows and rows and rows of non-L tubes or electrical wires or electronic now.
Mm-hmm.
And you really got to get your head together.
Or soon to be wireless.
Well, I'd say now wireless.
Yeah, now wireless.
But soon to be more extensive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another dimension as well.
Yeah, definitely gonna have to do a podcast on that kind of technology.
Because you do really cool things with it.
Would you say that there is like an aspect of your career where obviously you're passionate about explosives, you're still here, you're involved, you're your own consulting company now, correct? Is there something like looking back in your career where you have said, man, I wish I didn't see that video about the backbone of Australia, or is there something like that, or have you thought to yourself, by being the backbone of Australia, you're holding up so much in the health and safety and seeing the progress of safety? Is there moments in your life that you have said, why am I underground? Humans don't belong down here, or have you had those doubts and almost quit or anything like that?
No, never. And sometimes, went through university, undergrad in Kalgoorlie, and it was, to put it into a few words, I think it was a period of time when probably 2 or 3 of the people that were in either my year or a year afterwards or whatever were killed up. And rockfalls and stuff like that. And you just got to get your head around it and say, well, I'll just be, it may not be in my hands, but you try to be that much more alert. First thing you think of when you walk into an underground mine is you scan it and say, right, what things here can kill me, basically.
Yeah.
And it's a fatalistic thing. You just think, this is, you manage the risks and
absolutely,
and accept the fact that if it's your day, it's your day.
Right.
But no, never regret it.
I always tend to look at things as if I'm more likely to get in a car accident,
Beyond any doubt.
beyond any doubt. And I tell people that all the time. Oh, explosives are so dangerous. I'm like, I just got to get to work, and I think I'm going to be a lot safer as long as I get to work.
Explosive blasting is well. I'll say it. I think blasting is extremely safe because, well, firstly, the products are designed and built to be safe, and because you're dealing with explosives, you're aware the whole time. So your focus is on safety. You're taught this is the way you do it. You never do this, and it makes your job a lot safer. If you're driving, your mind goes away somewhere else. You end up, you just drive a bit faster than you should. Things like that, because it's half unconscious. When you're handling blasting, explosives and stuff like that, you're always focused, I think. And that's how you stay healthy and stay alive. And like you said, the health and safety stuff. And this is a long time before there was such a focus, formal and education and legislation. So it was, you stay alive by being focused.
Has there been a bit of your career where you actually, because you're, like I said at the beginning, you're a very personal person, and has that fostered you when it comes to, has that helped been an asset for you when it comes to implementing change throughout your career in the industry? From a technical aspect, coming in and saying, here's some data, I need you to understand this, and how can I communicate that other than some graphs?
Beyond any doubt. I mean, when it comes down to the service, if you're not producing a benefit for your customer, for your client, then life just gets so hard. And I think that, part of it, and I'll use the word, I don't want people to misunderstand, but there's a lot of seduction in it. But it's seduction based on, what you said, openness, interest in what they do, humility or humbleness, because the first thing I assume when I walk into a site is that I know nothing about it. And you ask questions, you listen carefully, and when you do have the ability to transmit something to them, you do it every time. If I've seen people who will tend to believe, I'm the expert, this is my information, I'm going to be very careful how I parcel it out. And I believe that's just completely wrong for a few reasons. One is that you're not an expert. In my opinion, the SEV concept, so what is it, subject matter expert? Mm-hmm. I would say subject matter enthusiast or specialist, because I'm not an expert. I'm a specialist, and I think that if you get to the point where you believe you're an expert, I think your learning days are over. That's just my viewpoint, and there'll be a lot of people out there that will disagree with me. But there's an old saying that if you imagine a circle, the area of the circle is what you know, it's your knowledge. The perimeter of the circle is the definition of your ignorance. The more you know, the bigger the circle gets. But the more your ignorance grows, the more you become aware of the fact that you know nothing or very little. And that fires up your hunger to go and learn more and do more and stuff like that. And the other aspect, dealing with customers is, and this is sometimes I think what people miss, it is a lot easier to sell something, whether it be a product or a service or get willingness to back a project. It's a lot easier to do that when your customer is smart and intelligent. And if part of your approach to marketing yourself or your company is to go out of your way to educate the client, it just makes everything so much more easy, much more plausible, much more effective. And in the end, the customer ends up, knowing more. And typically they don't forget where they learned what they learned. So you tend to build some loyalty with your customers and your clients, and as you know, with your students.
Yes, absolutely. So
loyalty is a massive thing.
And sometimes you only have one chance to prove it too. If you burn that bridge,
you can get.
You're going to get ignored at the conferences, and the industry's small. So
it is. Yeah, I mean, you can lose 10 years of accumulated goodwill in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
If you screw it up.
Absolutely. And so that's a very good point there on the perimeter of what you know is your own ignorance and ego. Is there some moments as when you're presenting your data, let's say at a conference like this, and you had like imposter syndrome, where you thought to yourself like, what am I doing here? Or is this value? Am I bringing value in this presentation to the clients or something like that? Do you know what?
Yeah, I do. The answer to that's simple. Every day, and not just the conferences. You learn things. You see the value in sharing those things. But yeah, I think I always feel like people say, "Wow, that's exaggerating the note." They'll say, "That's amazing." I said, "It is? Okay, right." I just thought it was pretty straightforward. But the imposter syndrome, I think, is a part of my life and lots of people's lives. And it's certainly, I don't know if it's healthy, but it's a lot healthier than the other way around.
Touche.
Yeah, God's gift to the mining industry doesn't work. So I guess you try and do what you can. And the other thing, obviously, when you're giving talks, papers and stuff, is more often than not, by the time I'm finished, I've learned more than I ever shared or taught, stuff like that. How? I don't know, but you basically come away from it thinking, geez, I didn't think about that. Or, I didn't know that. So I think it's...
Because you dive into it to such an extent that you're going to be publicly sharing this knowledge, so you want to dot all your I's and cross your T's. It's kind of a good point there. And you're your own worst enemy, being a critic sometimes. You can find the errors and say, "Oh well, I wish I had done the test this way. If I had an opportunity to do it over again."
Exactly.
People
ask you questions, and that's a great way to learn as well.
Is there something that, in a moment in your career where you knew you were in the right spot, when you said to yourself like, "Wow, that was I did gave the right answer," or you provided a really good value, or you created a certain relationship where you were needed and you were glad that you were able to provide, like definitively,
sure,
like an ego boost?
Yeah, I guess at some stages, but to be honest, the biggest thing that reminded me all the time that I was in the right place was when I got to belong to and to participate and sometimes to recruit good teams. Occasionally, off your own bat, you would suddenly join up a couple of dots, and everything just made sense. And you just had just a little extra clarity about, hey, you do this and this happens, and why would that happen? Well, because of this, and this, and it's almost like a puzzle resolves itself in front of your eyes. And then, of course, you go and look into it again, and if you can confirm that it works, then publish it, share it, because somebody will say, "Well, that's interesting, but remember this," and then you think, "Damn, okay, I'll go and explore that." And that's happened a few times. Even to this day, occasionally you stumble across something and you think, "Damn, that worked." And particularly when you work with somebody from a related but different discipline, like working, for example, I really enjoy working with geotech people because you combine knowledge, you combine instrumentation, you measure different things. They teach you, you teach them, and together you'll do something which is new. Blasting meets faults, for example. And you come up with an idea, you say, what if this works? You go look at other mines and other places in the same mine. And your theory just coincides with every single case you find. And that's a buzz. That's a massive buzz. But there's always that element of, how the hell did I not see this before? Which is great.
I could imagine building a team that's, work over the career, working with so many people and managing different characteristics of everybody, and the company and the rock and the funding. But then if you hit like an all-star team and you got that for like 2 to 5 years, or even then, you probably look back at your career and you're like, oh man, they were rock stars. That was my NBA all-star team.
Yeah, that happened to me twice. It happened in Chile when we Dynacut was a big deal in Australia. It worked, so we exported it. So I went to Latin America and started from scratch with 1 and then 2. A bit like adoption, families they'll adopt 1 kid, for example, and then all of you together, and especially the child, will pick the next one, and then the 2 of them decide, okay, now we need this person. And the reason that works is because it's all about chemistry. So there's a lot of smart people out there, but if you choose the next one so that they fit in with the chemistry, the culture, it just grows. And it's again, I hammer this concept. You get a team where everybody's loyal to everybody else, and at the end of the day, you just facilitate. You enable them, you empower them. The other trick, of course, is if you make sure that everybody you hire is smarter than you. Yeah. And people think, I can't do that. I'm supposed to be the boss, the mentor and stuff. But then you discover other things to mentor you with. The whole concept of, I'm the boss, but I'm here for you. If I'm here for you, you'll be here for your customer. And it just spirals out. So I've done that a couple of times. Once with Dynacut, and the other time was with Davey Bigfoot. And that was all about, if your only business is at the time detonators, then you only have, I think, 2 ways to compete with the biggies. One is obviously to build, hopefully, the best, safest system. And the other way to do it is to build the most innovative, thinking outside of the box engineering team. Because you think about it, an electronic detonator in the system is a tool. So use the tool to build, a beautiful house, or a nice piece of furniture, or a machine that just works beautifully. But the point is, and teach your customer how to use it to develop solutions, and that can get you very competitive.
That's when I first met you. Is when I was working for Maxim, and they had just started using Davey Bigfoot detonators at one of the sites in Canada, and you guys sent up your team, and it was just a phenomenal. Billy Obermeyer was there. I mean, you guys, Johan from MTI was there. Exactly. I mean, you guys, Johan from MTI and Billy.
There was Gavin Yule from another company, genius.
Now I feel like a jerk because I forgot.
I do that all the time. All the time.
Okay, Billy's gonna hit me in the head for this one. But yeah, and then I met you guys down at the conference, and it was just great. I mean, you could see that you guys were really rocking it. And it was what you said about teaching people how to use it, and the training that you guys provided when we were on the bench. I didn't feel like I was an expert or anything, but I got confidence, and I was working with your guys as the middleman between, as the reference between our company and your company. So whenever our clients had any issues, I was always working. So I built a really good relationship with some of your guys, and it was very cool to see the level of training and education and freedom of knowledge that you were just providing, just throwing it out constantly, really making sure that people felt welcome and safe with the product at the time. It was good.
When I joined the company, I didn't know that much about electronic data. I was involved with Dyno when they acquired half of DataNet, but then shortly afterwards I moved on. But the other thing that was a standout for that company all over the world was that, and it worked so well, because everybody, how Dr. House would say, everybody lies, but everybody has misfires. Everybody, nobody is safe from misfires. So how do you turn that? And it sounds a bit perverse, but how do you turn that to your advantage? You have the most thorough, open, honest investigation process that you possibly can. And contrary to what some people do or some people think, first assumption is, it's my product. None of the stuff, it's the geology, or it's, you guys had a bad day. No, it's the product. Your first duty, the thing you must first do is examine every scenario where it could be your product, your system. And all too often, it will be somehow the product. And I've seen amazing things. Davey Bigford, and I'm not by any stretch of the imagination selling Davey Bigford. I'm sure a lot of other manufacturers do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen a case where we went literally in Chile from the first contact, the first meeting, from dealing with, let's say, the mining superintendent, get your stuff and get off site. But if you get over that, and again, I'm not kidding, I have not seen it more than a couple of times. By the time we'd finished the investigation, and Johan was involved heavily in that, because he was the liaison with France, the things they did, they dissolved an ASIC, they microscopy, the whole box. I said, literally, by the time we finished, and it was, really, it's a strong mea culpa. The guys at the mine, I'm not kidding, they applauded. They actually applauded the final presentation. And it was our thing. It was our, I don't want to say our fault, but it was, the issue was on the part of us.
Mm.
And that is so obvious to me and to us. It's the only way to do it. Always assume that it's your issue first. And obviously the other thing is that once you've ruled out all of the things to do with your product, and I did this once upon a time in another mine in Australia, then you're free to go and ask questions about what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the customers are a lot more open to looking into their side of things and to accepting it. Because you've been so honest, you sort of literally said, I've shown you mine, so now show me what you do. It just works. And again, it's so simple that you wonder, why on earth would you do it any other way?
And it maintains the integrity and the relationship with the client, the customers, long after you've left Davey Bigford.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to have that response. And it was Ron is who
Ron Eastman.
Yeah, Ron Eastman. He's the king.
He's great. He's fantastic.
And so, having those kinds of attitudes towards issues was something that I learned very well working with people who are in your team. I think that it's good that you bring that up.
It should be human nature. And again, it's sometimes, it's almost embarrassing. I think, not embarrassing, but, it feels a bit strange that the best way to get ahead is to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it's easy to be honest. It's simple. Just be honest. Tell the truth. Except if your wife asks if that dress makes her ass look fat. In that case, no, you don't do that. But it's just, it makes perfect sense. And the other one, which I think is absolute gold, is get used to saying things like, I don't know. And I'll go find out. Or I'll ask somebody who does know. But, never dodge those questions. Sometimes the way to become right, the way to be right more often is to be wrong from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're always right, if you always win, you don't know what it's like to lose. Eventually it'll happen, and you'll be destroyed.
That's the mark of a good scientist, though.
I was reading somebody. I think it was literally on Instagram, and there was I think the 10 top quotes of Jeff Bezos or Bezos. I'm not sure which one. And one of them just hit me in the face. He said, "If everything works, then it was never an experiment." I thought, man, that's powerful. In other words, take a risk. Don't be afraid to be wrong. And when stuff doesn't work, that's actually 3 doors open. And I think that's the way you should be approaching stuff like that. Don't be safe. Be safe physically.
Yes.
But don't be safe with your ideas. And don't try to be right at first. Try to be learned. Try to learn and to become right. I think is the way to go.
Bill, thank you so much.
No.
I really appreciate this podcast and
Thanks
you
very much.
coming on and sharing some knowledge. Always, every time I learn something when I talk to you, usually, or we cheers and have a good beer.
Yeah, well, exactly. And in closing, I just want to say that one of the first times we ever had the chance to talk was at one of the IACs. I forget which one it was, but you were organising. You invited me to it was like speed dating, except it was speed, talking to students. And when we sat at the table, the students came around, and I just had the best time. And I thought, quite honestly, without wanting to, throw flowers at you, as we say in Spanish, that was one of the cleverest things, and also one of the most enjoyable things I think I've ever been involved with. So, kudos to you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We're still doing that to this day too.
Great.
We're still doing that. So.
Maybe you'll invite me back one day.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you again.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Blast Report podcast. I want to thank the team at Blast Think for producing this show, and please follow along for more episodes in the future, and share this podcast with your colleagues so we can continue to honor our industry and the people in it. Be safe and have a blast.